How are you?
I was born first.
Just coffee. How you been? John. There's a bad flu going around. I had it last week.
Did you?
Sick as a dog.
It's a great time. Preston had it. Lindsay's mom had it. Jared's got me out. It's been how long did yours last?
A week.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. This is the annual meeting for the Riverview Development Corporation. My name is Mark Mueller. I was the new board president. And I would like to introduce, or have everyone else on the board, and some other staff members to introduce themselves one at a time, starting right there.
All right, back corner. Kevin Felderman, Vice President.
Judy Weber, Treasurer.
Teresa Weber, Secretary. Lene Seabrady, Administrator for Mill Valley and Sunrise Villa. Minnie Asper, and I'm the Director of Nursing at Mill Valley.
Angie Long, I'm on the board of directors.
Good evening,
Dave Chesvold, Healthcare of Iowa.
Welcome, everyone. Would you like us to speak up a little bit? Sure. Can you hear okay? Okay, thank you. If you cannot, just let me know. I can turn the volume up a little bit. Okay, first I want to do is thank everyone for coming. I want to thank the volunteers who assist us at Mill Valley and at Sunrise Villa. Those are some of the assets that we rely on to do some of the things we can't get to every day or on the weekends, and we appreciate their efforts. Okay, so here's where we're at for Sunrise Villa. We continue to make money, right, as we had before. The numbers are still 18 on board with a waiting list of 18. So that still continues to go well. At Mill Valley, we are improving. We're not making money yet, but we're not losing as much as we have in the past. Did you want any more details on that?
A little bit of update, everybody.
Okay, I'll have Dave run through some more details at this point.
Thanks, Mark. And just briefly, 2020, at the end of 2022, I know it's an annual meeting. These are really bad numbers for Mill Valley, but I would just tell you, misery loves company. I believe 11% of nursing homes in the state of Iowa cash flowed in 2022. Well documented. All you have to use over the newspaper. But the nursing home lost $583,000. The good news is the assisted living made $277,000. So the net loss was $306,000, which is about $25,500 a month. I know this doesn't make you feel any better, but that's actually not as bad as most of your colleagues out there. It was an absolutely terrible year for nursing homes. But the good news is, Mark said, we're clawing our way back. But I do want to mention, the Medicaid situation has always been rough in nursing homes, right? Many of you guys, we come to these meetings for years and years, you always show the Medicaid rate's terrible, right? I mean, we've always been, part of it was just, we complain about it, but we'd always find a way to backfill it. We'd backfill it through charging more to the private pay, and we'd have Medicare, and we'd keep Sunrise Villa full, and those sorts of things, and we just managed that loss that was typically, even up to about 2018, it was about a $40 a day loss. That margin difference today is $150. Our Medicaid rate in 2018 was $152 a day. Our Medicaid rate today is $170. It's a 12% increase since 2018. As you can appreciate, our nursing costs have gone up about 85% since 2018. And our overall costs have gone up about 65%. So when half of your revenues are based on Medicaid, that really makes for a challenging right out of the chute every month when we have that kind of loss. So the good news is we're going to see a little bit of an increase in Medicaid April 1 and July 1, but it certainly is not going to be anywhere near $150 a day. So if we're lucky, it'll be somewhere around 38 to 50.
Okay.
But things are much
Around the end of last year, beginning of the fiscal year this year, our census of Mill Valley was about 22. Today we're about 50% higher. We're in the mid-30s, about 33 today. 33 today. So we're on the right track. We're not where we want to be yet, but we are on the scale of improving. There are a few things that we will continue to work on. Staffing costs with agency was one. Marketing the facility locally and regionally, number two, so that we can bring in more customers from the region, not just from Bellevue, not just from Jackson County, but maybe from Clinton County, maybe west of here, toward Macoka, maybe a little bit north, St. Ignace, Lamont area, Zwingo. So we are trying to reach out to those folks to have them come take a look at us. We made a reduction in the number of licensed beds for the facility. Dave, would you like to cover that?
Yeah, I mean, the punchline, we did all the really nerdy minutia of the whole thing, and I would completely lose you after about 20 seconds. But the punchline is we were able to reduce 8 beds that got us down to a threshold to our Medicaid reimbursement is significantly higher. So should not affect the operations. These are beds that shouldn't be missed at all, but it is going to help the Medicaid rate. It's starting as early as April 1st.
Yes, sir.
So we reduced 8 beds. That means we don't meet the needs of 8 people?
No.
No, sir.
These were, you know, these are 8 empty rooms that haven't been used in years. And the demographics will tell you that they are not going to be used again.
So the number of beds used to be at a rate of about 68, I believe, when the facility was full. So over the years, there have been significant reductions in that number. I expect for the same reasons that we did at this time, because number one, the future didn't look very bright. It would improve the stance of the facility and the financial parts of it by reducing the number of licensed beds. That's been done at least twice that I have documented. So this will be the 3rd time that I know of that we're doing it, and we're kind of doing it for the right reasons. The governor and the nation say the trend in long-term care is not stable, but continuing to decrease. So the future of long-term care facilities is not rosy. We cannot be in a position where we can wait for the beds to fill up. That's not going to happen. If you looked at the facility 10 years ago, we're not increasing the rates of long-term care beds because they're not coming to us. In the last 3 years, it became crystal clear they're going everywhere else but in long-term care. So around the nation and around the state, they're not looking favorably on establishing new long-term care facilities because the ones already in existence have a tough time making a dollar.
So in the repurposing of these rooms, what will they be, well, what revenues will be generated by these 8 empty?
Give me a few minutes, we'll get to that. Okay?
They've not been producing any revenue
No.
for years. They've been sitting.
In fact, there are more beds that have been non-producing since 2019 that we were initially going to look at, but we selected the 8 that made a difference in the cut with which the state looked at financing, so that's why we selected 46 and not anywhere above or below that. That cutoff made a significant difference, and that's why we stopped it. It's not that there are more beds that are idle than that 8, and it won't affect our ability to care for residents in the future, not the way we see it, not the way the state sees it, not the way that AARP magazine sees it.
We still have 16 rooms.
16 open rooms yet today. We have we have the ability to care for the people who can come to us, but it has been years since we have had the need for that capability. The numbers just aren't there. They're just not there. I have been personally related to the facility for about 21 years. Once in that lifetime, where the facility is so full that my spouse had to share a room with someone else. Once in 21 years. Since then, it has been a slow and gradual decline to the point where we're at today. So, we're going to look at a 5-year plan that may address that. Okay, Dave kind of covered the picture for 2022. Financials was not very good. March 2023 are looking better. Again, stabilization of staff, less need on agency, more customers coming in have put us in a better position. I don't know the impetus behind all of that except focusing on providing a family stability with our staff, trying to recruit the people who work there so that they can work for Mill Valley instead of working for agency. It's one of the key focuses I'm trying to I'm trying to look at, trying to have the staff members look at, and trying to have them impose upon the CNAs, the LPNs, and the RNs. Get them to come into the family so we can provide a more stable staff environment and start reducing the costs for agency over the long term. We had the same bylaws since Mill Valley was started back in the 60s. We're in the process of reviewing those bylaws. We are going to have a legal review of them so that they become more up to date and provide the needs of Riverview Development Corporation as they reflect today, tomorrow, and next year. That's probably gonna take a little while, but that is under complete review right now.
Mark,
Yes?
will the shareholders vote on those bylaws?
Yep.
Now, how will that be done?
You call it special meeting, won't you, to vote
Could
on
do
it?
that. Depends on when we get that part done.
Well, that's the way I would assume you will do it.
Yep. We could, or if we get it done about the time of the annual meeting, we could wait for the annual meeting. But as was
And you
suggested,
will allow proxies also.
I'm kind of new at all the officiation parts of this, so I'll have the rest of the staff and HCI walk me through how to do this correctly. Any other questions on that? Our goals for RDC for 6 months and 1 year out. Increase the marketing of the facility. Try and get the word out of the services that we can provide, the full spectrum of services that we provide. The care, the family environment, the things that we can provide that no one else can. We are working on that. Staffing is the other portion that we need to work out. Trying to stabilize the workforce so we don't have quite as much turnover. Trying to stabilize the workforce so we don't have to rely on agency quite as much as we do today. Since the start of COVID in March 2020, agency is the only way many facilities can survive. Once COVID enters a facility and gets in the staff parts of it, they cannot come into the facility, and our ability to function then becomes critical. We have to rely on agency to open the doors once we have staff involved with COVID. We can't get away from that yet. We still continue to have staff in the building, not every week, but at least every month so far since I've been there, and that makes it tough on everybody. We have people that have never been there before. The residents have people they've never seen before taking care of them. We can't get away from that yet. So, our focus is to try and reduce our reliance on the number of agency personnel, but that's going to be a very slow process, and it's difficult. Even the CNAs don't grow on trees. There's plenty around, but they don't all work here, or they're not all interested in working here. So we're trying to create an environment where they want to come, either through recruitments to the high schools, NICC, connections with the agency personnel, if we can talk them into working for Mill Valley instead of working for agency, at least part-time, are all venues with which we're trying to explore, with some success. And I will have Dave talk to you about the 5-year plan.
Well, thanks. Just so everybody knows, we don't have a 5-year plan necessarily all laid out. However, we've just had a lot of great discussions about what it could look like. And, you know, again, I think the worst thing we can do is sit around and say, well, look, if we just wait long enough and we try just a little bit harder, we're going to get back to the good old days. Nursing home's going to be full and we're going to be right. Like, that is not, I mean, that, you can't do that in any business, and this is no different. The days of traditional nursing home, I mean, while it's still a need, you know, it's just not going to be utilized as heavily as what it was. Remember, back when this building was first built, I guess the majority of the occupants walked in the front door. That doesn't happen anymore. You know, for the most part, nursing homes now are just, you know, a very high acute environment for the most part end of life, or you've exhausted your time in independent living, assisted living, and those sorts of things. So this is happening, you know, state and nationally. Closures are real, occupancy declines are real. Just because, one, there's just, you know, it's not because demographics has changed a whole lot. In fact, you know, they've gotten a little better in many cases, but just because there's so many alternatives out there. You know, and you've been part of that. You built the assisted living not only once, but a second phase. There's so many alternatives out there that I think something to really consider in order to keep this campus viable in the future is to figure out how we expand, almost like doubling down on revenues that can feed your assisted living and your nursing center without utilizing a lot of staff. Staffing is going to continue to be a challenge. The demographics, the math is just not good. The math does not work in our favor. The only way to fix it was 18 years ago. And so we're going to continue to fight that until about 2045. So in the meantime, how can we provide services for the organization and the community and just not have as much, the requirement and the staffing burden that the nursing home requires. And so something to consider that we've talked about is do we look at putting an independent living type setting on campus where it could be connected or not connected, and just provide an environment where there's security, safety, meals potentially, services that can be provided by us or just home health, which you would utilize independent service. And we can provide some housekeeping and oversight and those sorts of things. But that's as a family member, now that your loved one's actually getting a couple meals a day versus eating Twinkies or whatever it is that unfortunately people have to do. But also some security in the fact that, look, we know somebody's keeping an eye after them and everything that goes with an independent living, but they can also feed into your assisted living and your nursing center. We've done a market study, same organization we used to build the assisted living in the past. As you can appreciate, there's just zero recommendation for nursing home beds. But there actually is room. It's interesting, we have 18 on a waiting list because the study shows a conservative need for an additional 12 to 15 assisted living apartments and a large need for independent living. So I think there's some revenue opportunities out there, but again, it costs money to make money in that case. Obviously, we know building's not cheap these days. The good news about independent living is you're not tied to a bunch of red tape with rules, regulations, and building code, whereas you are nursing homes needing to assist with to a certain extent. So yeah, those are some thoughts out there for sure.
So the survey was done since the beginning of the year, and it was positive toward the independent or assisted living facilities. We are going to continue to try and pursue that venue by means of a facility that may be going up shortly north of here, and see what kind of costs that they're incurring right now, this summer. So that we have an idea on how much it costs currently in this environment to build that facility. And then we'll take a look at some of the other demographics that we have here and some of the possibilities, and then we'll discuss it between us. And yeah, we'll be looking at either an assisted living or an independent, probably an independent living facility on the Mill Valley campus.
That will be put to the shareholders.
Absolutely, yep. We need to do the homework on it. Right now, it's just, this is what we kind of want to do. We got to get some concrete evidence of the costs. We got to get a few other factors involved with that. But the way the industry is going, again, our assisted living, there's 18 on the waiting list trying to get in. 18. Most people could be accommodated tomorrow if we had a facility that would support that.
You got the room to build it?
Yep. We're kind of looking at that. We have an idea of where we want it to go, but there are a lot of factors that go into that. So, first of all, we have to find out what it's going to cost. Second of all, we have to discuss it with everyone to see where we want to go. Third, placement and other particulars are part of that. So this is just the initial discussion, but the way the industry is going, the way the demographics look here, that's kind of the way we're trending and that's kind of where we want to go. Questions?
That's a real futuristic plan. You've created a 2023 budget, I assume. And what does that budget show the current facility is going to yield? Is 2023 going to be a profitable year? The reason I ask this is it seems you're focusing on that. You still have this over here. This is what you have to manage today. And I'd like to understand how we're going to manage this today that is a reality, not get way off into 2, 3, 5 years down the road, because you're 2 to 3 years from being able to build that facility. You don't have the capital, you don't have the financing, all those things. So let's talk about what's the plan for our current facility and what's the budget year look like?
We only have influence over two things, about two things. What we spend. We can't influence, we can't get more people in, we can't drag them in. We can influence their decision making on where they want to go, so that's all we can affect for the people we want to draw in. We have some influence on the staffing costs that we have currently. And we're trying to work on the staffing costs. I don't expect a quick turnaround on that through 2023 because there isn't any significant influx of customers that I see yet. and we're still working on trying to reduce our operational costs. I don't see, honestly, I don't know if I can see profit in 2023, because the first 4 months of the year haven't shown anything yet, other than we're trending better.
Well, Mark, if I could also add that, we can add 20 patients to nursing home. Predominantly, the market is Medicaid. So of the 20, if 15 out of 20 are Medicaid, and we're getting $170 a day, but it costs us $320 to take care of them, I don't think we want that. I mean, that's no path out of poverty. The math doesn't work. I don't care what business you're in. So that's the next problem. And so now we're looking only for private pay patients at a burn rate of about $9,000 a month. I mean, those are the things, I think that's what Mark's trying to articulate, is that this nursing home, the longevity, this doesn't work. I don't know what has to happen, because we are on a Medicaid rebase year this year. And if our loss is $150 a day, and we're hopeful that we're gonna get 50, I'll let you do the math on what that looks like. Again, this is not 2018 anymore. I don't know what has to happen at the nursing home to get it to profitability. The stars have to align, they just do, which means we're gonna have to have a large influx of private pay, and we're gonna have to have a large influx of skill. In the old days, what we could do, we lost $40 a day on Medicaid, so we just charge the private pay $40 a day more. And so whatever the rate would be, we add more on top of it and make it up, and then you make a little bit in Medicaid or Medicare. Well, now you can't just tack on $150 a day on top. We've talked about it, but it's obviously not doable. So I think that's a conundrum that is being faced right now, that the profitable venture you have is the assisted living. And we know there's a need for more of it. We know there's a need for independent living, which the margin is there. We also know there's a need for assisted living memory care, which there's a good margin there, and again, staffing requirements are less. And we know that the path to success in nursing homes, that you're gonna have to thread the needle, and even then, it's gonna be really hard. What do you do? So do you spend more to make it work long-term? Do you throw in the towel? What do you do? Because I don't have a lot of, I can fill you full of BS, but the path to profitability at the nursing home is extremely hard.
That's the question I'm asking you, is what are you planning to do for 2023? Because you're painting a picture of a death nail of the facility. You're painting a picture of, unless we do something drastic, this is going to continue. You can't continue to lose money at the rate you're losing money now for about another 3 years, and then you're looking at bankruptcy, right? So I'm trying to figure out, I keep hearing you say how bad it is, but I'm not hearing you say, these are the concrete steps we're gonna take. And if there's nothing to be done, that's what needs to be said.
I would love to go to Des Moines and say, guys, look, we need $100 million for Medicaid rebates. I've done that, and I can tell you the Senate is firm at 15 million, because that's the governor's number. The House would be fine at 20 to 25 million, but it sounds like the Senate just is not gonna budge off 15 million. So I can tell you, I've been in Grassley's office, Pat, Speaker of the House. I've talked to Jack Whitford, the Senate Majority Leader, and I know the governor relatively well. And I can't get the $100 million we need to fully fund Medicaid. I can get us 15. So that,
think about what you're saying. You're saying there's no solution. Is that?
There's a path, for sure.
And what is that path?
Well, the stars have to align. We can raise.
Every private pay customer in the county has to come to our facility.
$450 a day.
That's how it works.
For private pay.
And that's the only solution?
Well, that's part of one.
Well, there are other solutions, and again, you can reduce staffing by as much as you want to reduce. There's no minimum staffing requirements. So
So
you
go
can
back to my
reduce it.
original question. Based on your planning, what's the 2023 budget look like? What's the end budget look like? How much more money are we gonna lose this year?
So, because of the,
Can we paint a picture of where we're at in March? Because we had numbers in the upper 20s, low 30s most of March. And what did we do in March?
Broke even.
Broke even. So if our numbers stay about the same, and the relationship between private pay and Title 19 and whoever else comes in, if that stays the same, we'll be about even the rest of the year, except for the losses we took the first 3 months. Okay? That's the picture as it stands today. If we can continue to staff the facility, and there's still facility turnover for a number of reasons that I'm not going to get into right now. But we still have staffing turnover issues. There's still a lot of agency there. So the concrete steps are, we are still trying to reduce the agency involvement in our operations. We are still trying to market the place better than it was before to bring the patients in. But until we get more private pay patients and the patients that cover the costs that we have, we're kind of stuck in where we're at right now. And where we're at right now is break even.
For the year.
For the month.
Dave, you got a pile of money this year, right? Okay. I think that would cover the losses for the nursing home more than that. I know we don't want to lose money, but if you're worried about what's gonna, it's covered by what the government passed on to us. It would cover the losses for 23.
We got significant funds from the employee retention program out of the federal government. A lot of money. So this year's not a going broke question year. We're not going down.
And nothing that might help. Tell them what you got in your reserves. Let them know. What do you got?
Money wise,
Yeah,
finances,
yeah. What do you got in your reserve?
1.8 million.
Okay, that includes that.
That includes the
classroom.
694,000 employee retention program money we got last month.
Okay, and of that there, a little over $1 million was our own money. It wasn't any government money.
This is the first we've heard anything about the $694,000.
It was only because we first got it in the end of February, right? And it's all part of the federal program that was rewarded to those facilities that stayed open during the COVID. We retained the employees.
I get the program, but, so now the answer to my question, my original question, the budget for this year, end of the year, will break even because we got 694,000.
I don't want to look at that gift because that was an earned income gift. That was simply a program
That's fine,
with
but
agencies.
Mark, you work with a budget. What's the budget say? Now are you telling me that the budget, which was done before this 694,000, has gotten 694,000 that's gonna carry us through? And that's good news.
Mhm.
That's very good news. You're not sharing that.
But
You're going on with these, well, if we did this and if we build something else, we've got a problem now.
yeah.
Okay? It's nice to know that we got a solution now, but 5 minutes ago, nobody in this room knew we had that solution.
Yeah, we can cover 23 with that government money. But they have to worry about what happens in 24. I mean, that's where they should be thinking right now.
Exactly.
And that's where we want ideas. So far, if you got a waiting list of 18 for assisted living, I would start thinking about adding on to assisted living. And independent housing, no.
I would do it. We're in an overbuild situation now because 12 years ago, we had this big demand.
Yep.
The demand's shifting, the chronological picture is shifting. There's not going to be that demand in 10 years for that many assisted living programs. You're betting on today's numbers to be valid 5 years from now, and that's what got us in trouble 12 years ago.
Time out. So what you're telling me is that you don't believe the numbers in assisted living are going to be there in 10 years. And I'm telling you that the state and the federal agencies don't believe the long-term care numbers are going to be there again, as they were 10 years ago. I'm not sure that somewhere between assisted living numbers that you believe are valid and independent living numbers that are out there somewhere, people are going to want to go somewhere, right? Right now, there's indications that they want to go to assisted living. Tell me, if you can explain to me why that's gonna change?
The reason it's gonna change is that others have gotten in ahead of you.
Not right here. Not right here, they haven't. I don't wanna be argumentative, but when we did the survey, it was done through this area and the surrounding areas. The people that we would normally draw from for those types of services. I don't know where else they would go if they don't have things here. It would be Wacokota, Clinton, Dubuque, Scott County, if they wanna go down that way. But if you're in Bellevue, or Lamont, or St. Denis, or Green Island, I want them to consider coming here first. And it's because it provides a non-city farm life environment that those other places cannot provide. We're right next to a farm field, for God's sakes. No other facility has that. We have the peace and quiet. We have more of a rural feel in our facility than anyone else has. So we have some intrinsic value in the places that we have here. And I believe, and so did the surveyors, that that's a draw for the area. They believe it's a draw for the area.
We were told for years, assisted living was a thing to look forward. Nursing homes are going to be considered dinosaurs. They just are not, the people are not going to go into it.
I get that, but I also understand the marketing aspect of your survey is today, your reality is 2 to 3 years down the line. Someone else is gonna beat you. If someone else beats you to that market, then you're gonna be back in the same position we're in today. I would much rather see us figure out how to take this facility, re-engineer it, repurpose it to meet today's demand. If you've got 18 people on the list waiting for assisted living, and you got 16 empty rooms, how much assisted living can be built into that facility space and at what cost, okay? And that should be able to be accomplished within at least a 6-month period versus a 2 to 3 month kind of gotcha out there.
I will tell you that the Northwest Wing, the residents in the Northwest Wing were moved out about January of 2019. I know that because I remember that it was pulled out of there. It has been relatively or almost empty since then. So my first question when I came on board is, what's the plan for the Northwest Wing? I said, we don't have one because we don't have the demand for long-term care. I said, okay, what's the next best thing? Well, we got residents waiting to get into the Sunrise Villa. Well, how many are those? Well, it's 10, 15, such and such. What's it going to cost to transition the Northwest Wing to an assisted living facility? Pricey.
Well, what's pricey?
Pricey is probably a couple $1 million.
It'd probably be cheaper to tear it down.
Tear it down
And rebuild.
and reconstruct it. Because we talked about that. It's
Because
one of the first things I said.
The rooms in the nursing home are not what other person going to assisted living would want.
Completely
They're
different.
too small.
I know that because my mother's in assisted living and have someone else in the nursing home. They are completely different facilities. Independent structures. You can't simply renovate a room that's designed for long-term care into a suite. That's what we call them, right? A suite. Can't design that into a suite. You can't expand the walls out to make it comfortable for assisted living or an independent person. You just can't do it. And so, he's right. He was right. It's cheaper to tear it all down and start from scratch. So you're looking.
A few years ago, we converted some rooms in the nursing homes to what we call suites. They cost us approximately $15,000 to convert.
Okay, 15.
Okay, but that limits the number of rooms you got in the place because of the size and so forth. And you gotta have the people that are gonna be able to pay the money, the extra money, to get into them.
Yeah, but they're saying they got a wait list of 18. Where does this $2 million, if they did it for $15,000 this week, where's the $2 million come from?
That's a valid
But
question.
I would never combine my nursing home facility with my assisted living in the same building.
Give me just a second. Let Dave step in. There's some technicalities that are.
Great question. I understand it because what was the first thing Mark brought up, and so, and anything can be done. But one, converting a nursing home room to a nicer nursing home room It's completely different than turning a nursing home room into an assisted living. So one, whenever you change licenses on anything, so if you decided to move those rooms and call them an assisted living, now you have to meet current code. So it has to be current code of an assisted living. Well, if you've been in those rooms, then we'd have to do some serious work to make the current code of assisted living. Fire marshal's involved, you have plumbing issues, you have the entire, I don't even know if the thing can meet current code to a certain extent. But I've done this exercise many times, it's the profession I'm in, to the point where I've had people spend many tens of thousands of dollars with architects trying to do it, and the answer is always the same. It's cheaper to scrape it and build new. In fact, that's what people have done. Literally scraped that wing and put on a new unit. It was cheaper than renovating the unit. I do this for a living, so it's a valid question. I understand the question, the first thing Mark asked.
First thing I asked.
But I've done the exercise enough times to tell you that it's cheaper.
And for your staff, you have to also consider, if you got some assisted living in this wing, the northwest wing, and you got the assisted livings all
Yep.
directly above it. How are you gonna staff them? Is it convenient for the staff if they gotta run back and forth?
So all those ancillary issues that deal with having the assisted living in two separate sections got to be really problematic. There has to be distance separation, there has to be doors, there's a lot of other factors that went into that, and it got to be too much. But that's the first thing I asked when I got there.
With Mark's guidance, we were on probably, I would call this, confidential. We tried like heck, we were probably on the 20-yard line to try and help the closure with Crest Ridge to move some of those folks.
Just time out, is anybody familiar that Crest Ridge was about to close a while back?
We have a secure unit, and so
Yep.
we went through the whole exercise that says, hey, we can not only help with these folks, keep them local, we keep the staff local as well. And that area you talked about, we found a way we got to move the therapy room, but we could lock the doors and we can accommodate 15, 20 people. We're in the middle of negotiating a rate, and the person that purchased Macocata Care Center just agreed to purchase that from the state. How they're gonna make that work, but granted, I don't know, but ultimately, but that was, we were on that. We were trying to do the best we could. It was gonna maybe not be an ideal situation, but if we were gonna do it, we wanted to make sure there was some margin there, instead of taking more Medicaid loss, which always figures. So,
That whole effort was to support our open ability to move those people in, have the staff move in with, to supplement our staff, and make everybody happy at the same time. Again, Dave said we're on the 20-yard line until they got pulled out, bought out by somebody else. They were down to about 30 residents out there, so they moved a lot of folks. We took some of them, we took some of the staff. They have since maybe one or some may have moved back, but anyway, bottom line is I went out there twice with staff from Mill Valley to recruit those folks, staff and residents. And we were going to start getting some fruit from that, but that didn't work out so good.
yeah, it's unfortunate, I mean, that's just what's happening in the profession in Macocata, which is really close to here, is you have two local, what I would call locally owned and operated facilities, Iowa-based, and they're both now out of New Jersey. That's just what's happening. There's another assisted living in Macocata that changed the figures. It's unfortunate, but we are seeing a lot of that on the East Coast.
They're looking for places to spend their money. That's what it
They're not
is.
paying a lot of money, so.
Yep. Okay. Questions?
Think seriously about the assisted living.
I
Add
want
on.
to be able to track
Yeah.
that so I have more answers for everybody.
A former board member, Carl Keeper, had an idea on the existing, the new wing that you put on assisted living, build a Y form out. Consider that. That's about the only place you got property out there.
John talked to me about that.
And you don't want a wing behind the nursing home, that is crap.
Yeah, I don't, there will be significant discussions as this endeavor is being researched and developed, and we will keep you informed. How's that? Yes, sir.
On the 18 backlog, are they at other facilities waiting to come to this one?
No, they are not.
They're at home?
No, they're not.
They're
Do
at
you
home?
have a,
No,
there's no one scenario? There's, oh, go ahead.
they are not on any other list that I've been informed by the families. They are living with family or in their own homes at this time.
Are you charging them that fee we were talking about to
Not
get
at-
on the list?
Not at this time, we did talk about that, that's the next thing that I need to look at.
You should be sure so that they got a little commitment there.
Exactly.
So we talked about that, that
Yep.
if, Lenny's got 1,000 squirrels to chase right now, and, so we talked about that a little bit, but one thing's for sure is if we're having this conversation 6 months, a year from now, and the idea of adding on to the assisted living gets some legs, then that's when you call that long list and get a commitment
Yep.
with deposit, because then you really know, before you start building anything, we have
And
18
make
or
it
we
a
have 4.
substantial commitment.
Yeah, right,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Don't talk, we were talking $100 at one time.
Yeah.
I'd be a long way above that one. I'd say, hey, I want $1,000 up front.
I think that that's the industry trend, that's what we're.
Well, I mean, you gotta make it big enough that they're got, well, they got some commitment.
Yep, we don't disagree, but that's, when we had a board meeting before this meeting, and that got brought up at the board meeting, and I think that discussion will probably continue.
And what I'm seeing too is at times that list, there is a list, and when people aren't ready, but we're getting phone calls at last minute for people to get in there. And if there isn't somebody waiting on the list, we are taking people that weren't even on the list. So we're starting to get some of those outlining phone calls immediately of things changing for families, so.
Is that for the nursing home or is that
Facility.
Assisted living.
Yes.
Changes happen faster than families thought.
Any more questions on that issue that you want to bring up? And let me see where we're at. Reflecting on the most recent banking crisis, I just wanted to assure everybody that we have our assets in order to reduce the risk for RDC money in investments we have done, we spread the assets out to minimize the risk for our assets. Does that sound feasible? Is that right terminology? Sure. Okay. We are taking efforts to better communicate with you. This is being streamed live on YouTube. If anyone is interested in the future to watch this via YouTube, we need your email addresses so that I can send out the link to do that, and you can watch it from the comfort of your home, either on the annuals or the special meetings that we have. It's not for everybody, I understand that, but for those that do have the capability to watch at home with internet service, we can provide that capability to you. Okay, we are now to before we get to the election of the board of directors, is there any other questions from the audience that you would like addressed?
The update on the audit.
It's still in review. I talked to the Bailey folks last month. They didn't expect it to be done before today at all because they were that busy with all the other tax-related stuff they had to do.
Will the audit be made available to shareholders?
There may be, give me just a second. There's things in the Iowa code that you are entitled to. I just want to see if it also covers audits.
Bylaws cover the audit.
Bylaws are being rewritten now, though, so that, although we still operate by the bylaws that are in
Yeah.
effect, they're under rewrite.
I know.
So let
let me check on that.
No, it's not a check on it, Mark. The bylaws state where shareholders are to receive that, just like we were to receive when we walked in here, the financials were to be made available. Okay? We've gone a long period of time with not following those bylaws.
Okay.
Okay? And that's a concern. Okay? So I would hope that there would be an agreement by the board tonight that once you've done your review, that the audit would be forwarded either by email or however you want to do it to the shareholders. Because it's been 10 years since an audit's been done. And there's a number of financial irregularities in the reporting here. Okay? But I hope that we're going to get some guidance from the auditors on how to better do our financial reporting.
Okay. We can provide, if it's in the bylaws, as you state, we will provide it to you. Okay, either electronically or hard copy. Okay?
How was the audit firm chosen?
I don't know.
No,
It's I Bailey. It's I Bailey.
Uh,
And they're office out of
You
Riverview.
know who it is.
We've had them for years, and it was put out for bid. I made it, came through with the lowest cost.
12 years ago.
No,
This.
when we should have had our last audit, it was,
This
the
audit
way
was
the
put out
bylaws
for
are
bid.
written, it was every 5 years or at the discretion of the board. In other words, if some irregularity came up before the 5 years, the board could say, yeah, I want an audit. We ran
That
into,
was not
no, just a minute. We ran into that COVID problem. That put us off about 3 or 4 years. Right now, the board almost had to pay these audit firms to even do an audit.
I think there's two quotes, and you're right, I mean, out of 10, you know, between RSM and all the folks, most people wouldn't touch it because of staffing, but I Bailey gave us a quote and one other group. And Kruger gave us a quote too, which was significantly higher,
Yeah.
so with I Bailey.
And then tell them the rest here what they plan on doing. You're gonna have a full audit this year, then you're gonna have sort of a yearly update on that, not a complete audit, but
It's a financial audit.
Yes, it's going through the full audit.
you're going to full audit this year. Then next year will be a partial audit, or I don't know.
The financial audit.
Okay.
I'd like to know where
Just a
the
second.
bylaws are.
Just a second, there was a question in the back. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Is there COVID at the Mill Valley now?
We have a case there?
Yeah, we had a case today of an employee. We're testing twice a week.
That does not mean you can't go to the facility. What are the current rules for visitors to the
Yep,
facility?
we just ask that people wear masks when they come to visit the
In the common
facility.
areas?
Yes, and, you know, we're still keeping everything open, dining's open, we wanna keep things as open as possible for our residents. Of course, if there's significant changes and increase in cases, we'll be working with CDC guidelines to make those changes to everybody's safe.
Are most of your COVID cases out there with employees, or is it residents?
Yes, we've had, each week we've had a resident, one or two, and then this last week it's just been one employee. So knock on something, we're seeing
So
less
if-
cases, let's hope it keeps that.
If it's
trend.
more residents, it's simply because we got more residents in the facility than we got staff out here at the time.
Well, I look at COVID, it's just like flu. Hey, you get shot for flu and you don't get the flu, fine. You can get the COVID shot, you can still get that.
We're seeing a lot of people that have been tested, they come in and they're feeling fine and they're positive for COVID, there's no symptoms.
You can
And
check the
follow-
visitors, test them when they come
No,
in.
not the visitors, we're checking employees and residents only, but we do not check
You
visitors.
probably seriously consider spot checking your visitors. I mean, it's
Yeah.
covered for
So,
some places.
One thing I would say is that, you know, the public health emergency ends May 11th, I believe, and so again, we'll have some new guidance on how to handle all of this, and so, until then, just 24 days, we don't know what's gonna happen.
And as far as I'm concerned, don't listen to the CDC.
Well, we have to.
They're a bunch of crap.
Yes.
You had a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
another, Bob, comment. Where in the bylaws does it say every 5 years? It says every year.
No. I got a copy of the bylaws in home there, and it says, it was somewhere along the line before I was on the board, it was changed.
Okay.
I don't know when it was done. I
These
know
are
the
the
date.
bylaws that are in effect today.
The bylaws in effect, the copy I got at home, and I think most of the board members' copy, they got in there, written there. On such and such a date, it was changed to 5 years or at the discretion of the board.
Okay. When I went to your attorney and asked for the current bylaws, this is the bylaws that he provided to me. Okay? This calls for an annual audit. Okay? Number two, the board of directors cannot change the bylaws without a vote of the shareholders.
I can't answer that
Okay,
question.
well,
That was
hold
done
on.
before I was even
Hold
on
on.
board.
I'm gonna end the discussion right there for now, okay, because we wanna continue with the other business. We can continue to discuss the parameters of that,
That's fine.
but not at this time, okay? Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions from any other member? Yes, sir.
In the past year, there's been a turnover of directors, and I wonder how that came about.
This is our new permanent, oh, administrator? Oh,
No,
directors.
administrator,
Yeah,
directors, how that came about? how
She's
they-
kind of new, I'm kind of new. How did it come about?
Yeah,
People just decided that they had enough time and they wanted a change.
and how were they decided, on the new ones, how was that?
Nominated by members of the directors and then voted on by the directors to be a new director. And then they would get re-elected or elected initially, like myself, elected initially tonight with shareholder votes.
When somebody dies on the board or they step down like I did, the board, according to the bylaws, has the option to choose another member of the board who they would like to be on there. And when the annual meeting comes up, it is voted on. You decide if you want to keep those members on the board or not.
Does that answer your question?
I didn't know how that was being decided.
Any other questions? Okay, last point for the evening. Election, for those of us that are new, or re-election of those that are already on the board, for the board of directors. Do you know how the protocol from that runs? Okay. Do you know how?
We usually get a nomination. Motion on the floor. Right.
I'll make a motion to re-elect the current board to the board of directors for next year.
I'll second it.
All right, so plan for it.
Yes, sir.
You should be asking for nominations from the floor.
Well, I'm just making a motion. You can, yeah, you got the right, you can nominate whoever you want. I just made a motion and it was seconded, and,
Did you second it?
yeah.
Are we okay with standing where we're at? Is it time to vote now?
Are nominations open?
Nominations are open.
Nominations are open.
I mean, if you wanna be on the board, now's the time to say something.
I'm just saying,
No, I'm not, I'm just saying, not, yeah, now's the time to,
If anybody is wanted to nominate someone, now's the time.
and the trouble we have finding board members, we'll take anybody.
Not just anybody. Okay, anybody.
Makes you feel redundant, Andy. Well, yeah.
I'll make a motion that nomination cease.
Okay, there was a motion to nomination cease. I'll second that. Seconded by Willie.
Now you gotta ask the chairman, you gotta ask the guy to vote on it.
Okay?
Are we gonna vote on electing people?
This is the part I'm all new, as you can tell. So we'll vote on the current board members. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You're elected again.
Okay. It's official?
According to Bob, you're the best we can get.
Hey, it's hard to find board.
I think somebody bumped me into the line, I think is what happened.
The guy walked in the door.
And that's hard to find people that will serve on the board.
Okay.
I just, can I just say something?
Sure.
I would tell you, I haven't been on the board very long, but I have not been on a board with somebody so passionate about a center in my entire life. So having Mark on the board with his background and his experience with the care center, I mean, he's looking forward because we have to do that for the success of our community, to have something viable in the community. And I think we're lucky that we were able to get him to be interested, to be on the board, to help us with the future direction, because he is more passionate about this than anybody I've ever met. So I applaud Mark for the hard work he's put in. I believe it's been the best we could get.
And he even volunteered.
Okay, that concludes our meeting. Unless there's anything else anybody wants to bring up? Motion to adjourn? Sorry, the political parts of this I'm not very good at, can you tell? Motion to adjourn, second.
There are cookies and refreshments.
Cookies and refreshments, there was coffee up there. Thank you for coming.
Well, I don't understand.